Hello everyone and welcome to my course on drawing eyes. Here you'll be learning how to create a good looking eye. We're going to talk about shapes, how the eye looks in different positions, the size, how to add depth to them, add details, make the eyebrows and give some extra expression to the character. At the end of the class, you'll be drawing eyes like a pro and making your character more expressive. So I hope to see you in class. Let's get started. Hey everyone! Without further ado, let's get started. First, I would like to explain what your class assignment will be so you can follow the next videos and get started on it right ahead if you feel like it. We will be doing an expression sheets with different eyes and different expressions, so you just have to download the file that I'm including below and print it out to fill it. Or you can just make your own by drawing squares in a piece of paper with the expression's name in each box. I highly recommend making this sheet for your personal use. It will help you a lot when drawing, so you have some references to come back to if you run into some problems. Alright, when you're ready, let's move on to the next video. Let's talk about shapes. The shape of the eye mostly depends on what you're trying to showcase. In general example, remember these three archetypes. More angular eyes are more menacing and confident. Round eyes are more cute and simplistic. And squarer eyes are more neutral and orderly. Let's start by drawing some angular eyes. Focus on making a general shape like this. In this video, we'll be only talking about front-facing eye shapes. We'll be talking about different eye positions in the next video. So, just practice drawing the eyes facing towards the imaginary camera. Keep the lines loose, making the eye rounding up into a corner. This already starts to make the character look menacing and focused. Next, let's draw the round eyes. Try to keep the lines very fluid like this. Keep your wrist loose and let it flow. Practice several times with bigger and smaller shapes. This is making the character look cuddly and cute. Now for the squarer eyes. Keep the lines fluid but somewhat straight, making the corners more noticeable like this. Let's do a few more. This makes the character look neutral and you can use it for any character that you don't want to be evil or good, just a regular Joe. Of course, these are just the main archetypes, so you can mix and match any of these three and make a bunch of possibilities. Alright, that's about it for shapes. Let's get into placement and size with the next video. I'll see you there. This time, let's talk about the placement of the eye and size. Let's start with the placement. According to the head position, the eye will be drawn differently, so let's do the main positions where the eye can be. When the head is looking to the side, Most of the eyes will have a cone-like shape, like this. But if you're doing round or some different eye shapes, you will have to adapt it accordingly. For example, like this. Let's do the eye looking up. See the change? Focus on drawing one or even two circular lines from ear to ear to help you draw the eyes correctly. If you use guidelines, it will help you immensely at the beginning, so just use them until you catch the hang of it. Let's try making the head looking down now. Draw the guidelines first once again, and then draw the shapes in according to those lines. Here are some examples. Finally, let's go and draw the head looking down and into the side. Do the same thing now for the guidelines, even though the ear is a bit covered now. Just imagine where it will be, behind the head. Here is how to draw them in this position. Just keep practicing a few of these positions and remember to use guidelines. They will help you a lot improving your drawings. Now for the size, there is mostly two polar opposites to this. Bigger eyes are usually towards cuter and simplistic characters, like this. While smaller eyes are more focused and usually meaner characters, like this. On a side note, regular size makes the character look more confident. Feel free to play with different sizes and shapes and see what you come up with. Have fun with it and experiment. Next, we'll be talking about adding details and depth, so I'll catch you in the next video. Alright, so before we advance more, let's just talk a little bit in more detail about the placement of the eyes in the head using guidelines. A student came to us asking for some more tips on placing the eyes in the head using a head reference, so I would like to cover that a bit further. Also, thanks for your feedback. We're always looking forward for your questions and comments, and if you have something to say, feel free to leave a comment in the discussions. Also, if you're enjoying the course, please do consider leaving us a review. That is very important to us and it will help us keep creating content for you. Alright, let's go with the rest of the video. So I have here a head reference, very simple to know where most of the elements of the head will be. I'll be giving you this if you want, but you should definitely make your own. Our eye in the side position will be somewhere around here. Of course, depending on your character, it can go into an increased height or width. It can look very long if you wish to. But if we're doing something in a more normal scale, we should have an eye around this space. Since we're in the side position, the eye usually looks like a cone. This is our base shape for our eye. Now that we have here our base shape, let's draw our eye. Let's do something a bit more squared, like the rectangular eye shapes we did. Keep sketching it out and add the pupil with the iris. There we go. Now we can clean everything up, so just go over the previous lines with more confident and longer lines. Add the details you want. It's mostly according to your style and how you want your character to look like. Alright, so here we have our eye. Of course, like I said, we can stretch it out or make it higher. It's all according to how you want it to look. I'm just going to stretch it out a bit. You can also put it farther away or closer. Think of it like in video games, where you have the sliders for character creation. You can change the placement and size a lot, but for the standard eye, this is where it should mostly be. Alright, let's go for our front-facing head. Here's our line for the nose, where our nose will be. And let's make two vertical lines here, like this. This will be the general area the nose is occupying, so our eyes should be to the side of this line. And it can go all the way to the maximum of around here. But if you want something pretty standard, the eye should occupy this area, leaving some space between the eye and the nose. Let's do the same on this side. A big rectangle of about the same size. There we go. We have here two rectangles so we know where our eye should be. Now let's do the rectangular shape for the eyes, with the tilted line right there, and the iris and pupil. The difficult part here is usually making the eyes look symmetric. Of course, if you're doing this digitally, you can always just copy and paste one and move it to the other side. But this might make it look artificial. I would recommend you to actually draw both of them. The advice I have to you here is to start drawing one, then start drawing the other without finishing the first one. Basically, just draw them both at the same time. So let's see here. We have our base shapes for our eyes, and let's do some basic sketch lines to give it some more depth. Once again, we're doing square eyes, so focus on what we've talked about in the eye shapes lesson. Actually, we can make the eyes looking to the side, so let me just change the pupil and the iris here. Yeah, I think that looks better. Now let's clean everything up with long lines through the previous ones. Don't forget to take your time, there's no rush, do the best you can and keep practicing. There we go, we have here our eyes. If you're working digitally, you can now move them around and make them bigger or smaller according to your preference. Try out a few things and see how you like it. Just don't change the general area where they are. I'm just going to color these pretty quickly with some base skin color and add some color to the actual eyes, so I'm going to fast forward this a bit. There they are with some color. That makes them pop out a bit more. So that's pretty much it for the placement of the eyes in the head reference. Hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have any question, feel free to post them and I'll see you in the next video. Let's talk about detailing your drawing and adding some depth. Start by adding some eyelashes to it. Depending on how you want your character to look, you can try adding thick and long eyelashes like this, or slim and short like this. Or maybe even something in between. No need to overdo it. Some artists actually don't even draw singular eyelashes and prefer to do a big stroke to represent them, like so. Now for another detail, let's add the iris on the eye and do the highlight from your light source. Since the eye is a sphere, the light enters by one side and exits through the exact opposite side, like this. In the case the light source is coming in a more direct position, the eye will most likely only reflect one part of the light. So just draw a white spot on one side, the entry side. This is also an option if you'd like to keep your eye drawing simpler and more linear. These are the most important details that you'd want to include in your eyes. Next, we'll talk about eyebrows, so I'll see you there. Alright, let's talk about eyebrows. So there's quite a few ways to draw eyebrows. They come in all sizes and shapes, from thick and hairy to a simple very thin line. Here's a thick and hairy one. Just start by doing a few strokes along an angular line and keep going until you have a decent size compared to the eye. There's no exact way to do this right or wrong. Just keep some space between the eye and the eyebrow and go for it. A rule of thumb is that the closer to the nose, the thicker the eyebrow is, and the closer to the ear, the smaller and more pointy it is. Instead of an angular eyebrow, You can also just make it somewhat straight or exaggerate it and make it super angular. Try it out and see what works for you. Now let's do a thin one. The basics are the same as before, but instead of doing smaller strokes one by one, just do a long stroke along the arch of the eyebrow. These are usually done for simpler style or for makeup eyebrows. These are usually the two major ones you can do, but you can try anything in between and see what works and what doesn't. Just experiment at will. Now let's go for the fun part, expressions. Remember how we talked about angular being more menacing in the eye shapes? This rule still applies on the expression. The more angular the eyebrow is, the more aggressive and menacing the expression will be. This is good to use for angry or annoyed expressions. Let's give it a test. Another rule of thumb is that the closer the inside tip of the eyebrow is to the nose, the angrier it looks. And the opposite is also true. If you invert the inside tip, making it go up instead of down, it will look far less menacing and rather scared or sad. To make it even sadder or more scared, keep the line loose instead of angular. A nice wave form will help a lot conveying the frailty of the emotion. We've covered angry and sad eyebrows. Let's talk about happy. To make a happy eyebrow, keep the same direction as you would with an angular one, but keep it smooth, a nice big curve, and a bit higher up than usual, like this. This will make your character look happy and amused. Can you see the difference? Now that we've talked about the expressions to the eyebrows, let's just talk quickly about how the eye behaves according to the expression. As a rule of thumb, the larger the eye, the more emphasis it gives to the overall expression. So, if you're making a happy expression with a large eye, it will look super happy. But if instead you squint the eye, it will look amused or even laughing. If you're making an angry expression instead, it will look very angry if it's large, but it will look like it's conspiring something, or just a bit annoyed if it's smaller and more narrow. On the other hand, when you're making a sad expression, if the eye is big, it will look extra sad and mopey, or even scared. If it's squinting and narrow, it will just look a bit disappointed and teary-eyed. Stick around to see some more examples in the next video, and I'll catch you in a bit. You made it! Good job going through the whole class. I can't wait to see your assignment. If you'd like to post it, just put it in the project sections below, and I'll check it out as soon as I can. In the meantime, here are some examples on finished eyes that I created coupled with different emotions. Thank you for checking out the class, and I hope to see you again soon. If you like the class, remember to give me a positive review so I can continue making them. See ya!